I was paid $300 cash to watch a house overnight, and by 10:30 p.m., I realized I wasn't alone. If you were into real stories that don't quite make sense even after they're over, stick with me, because this is one I still think about to this day. I took the job because I needed the money, plain and simple. I had been scrolling through a local app looking for quick gigs, moving help, yard work, anything. And then I came across a post that just said, $300 cash, one night, house sitter needed. No pictures, no description, just a phone number. Now yeah, it felt a little off, but when you're low on money, a little off doesn't feel like a deal breaker anymore. So I texted the number. The guy replied almost immediately. He said his name was Daniel, and he told me he had to leave town urgently and just needed someone to stay in his house overnight. No pets to take care of, no responsibilities at all, just be there. That wording stuck with me more than it should have. I asked him why he needed someone there, and there was a pause before he answered, like he was deciding how much to say, and then he just said, "I don't like the house being empty." Looking back, that should have been enough for me to say no, but at the time, I didn't think much of it. When I got there, it was already dark. The house was at the very end of the street, kind of separated from the others, and even though nothing about it looked abandoned, it had this feeling to it that's hard to explain, like it didn't quite belong there. Daniel was waiting outside when I pulled up, and right away I could tell something about him was off. Not dangerous exactly, just tense, like he hadn't slept in a while. He shook my hand quickly, barely made eye contact, and led me inside like he was in a hurry to get out. The walkthrough was fast, way too fast for someone leaving their house with a stranger. He pointed things out quickly. The kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom upstairs. And then I stopped him and asked if there was anything I should know. He hesitated for a second, then said, "Just keep the doors locked." That was it. No explanation, nothing else. Then he handed me the cash, $300 bills, clean and crisp, and walked out the door without looking back. At first, everything felt normal. I locked up, turned on the TV, ordered some food, and tried to settle in. But the silence in that house wasn't the kind you get in a quiet neighborhood. It felt heavier than that, like it was pressing in around you. Around 10:30 p.m., I heard the first noise. It was a thump from upstairs. I muted the TV and just sat there, listening, waiting for it to happen again. But for a few seconds, there was nothing, just complete silence. So I told myself it was the house settling, or pipes, or something like that. Then it happened again, and this time it was clearer. It sounded like a footstep. Not loud, not exaggerated, just a shift in weight, like someone standing upstairs had moved. That's when I noticed something else. Earlier, I had signal on my phone, but now I didn't. Not even one bar, just nothing. I walked over to the staircase and stood at the bottom, staring up into the dark, and when I tried the light switch, it didn't work. I remember thinking how strange that was, because I was almost certain it had worked before. I thought about leaving right then, just grabbing my things and getting out. But something about stepping outside felt worse than staying in, and I can't really explain why that is. So instead, I went upstairs. Each step creaked louder than it should have, and by the time I reached the top, I could see a narrow hallway with 3 doors, all of them closed. I called out just a quick, "Hello," even though I knew how stupid that sounded. But there was no response. I checked the first room and it was empty. The second room was also empty, but the moment I stepped inside, I noticed how cold it was. Not slightly colder, but enough that it felt wrong, like walking into a space that wasn't meant to feel like that. There was no open window, no vent, nothing that explained it. Then I noticed the third door at the end of the hallway. It was slightly open, just enough to see darkness inside, and from where I stood, I could hear something. A soft, dragging sound, like fabric moving across the floor. Every instinct I had was telling me to leave, just go downstairs and get out of the house. But instead, I walked toward it and pushed the door open. The room was completely empty. No furniture, no decorations, nothing at all. The sound stopped the moment I opened the door. I stood there for a second, trying to make sense of it, and that's when I noticed the closet was closed, and I hadn't checked it yet. I started walking toward it, slowly, and right as I reached for the handle, there was a loud crash from downstairs. It was sudden enough that it made me jump back, and before I could even process it, I heard footsteps moving across the living room. Slow, deliberate footsteps. At that point, my mind just kinda shut off because now it wasn't a question of whether I heard something upstairs. There was clearly someone in the house. I backed out into the hallway as quietly as I could, and the footsteps downstairs moved, then stopped right at the bottom of the stairs. Then I heard a voice, low, calm, and clear. Stay upstairs. It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a rule. And it definitely wasn't Daniel. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just stood there, trying to think, trying to decide what to do, because now I knew that whatever was downstairs either came in after Daniel left, or had been there the entire time. I backed away from the stairs and went into the second room, the cold one, remembering there was a window. I shut the door quietly behind me and tried to open it, but it was locked and wouldn't budge no matter how hard I pushed. That's when I heard the stairs creaking, one step at a time. Coming up, I turned toward the door and the handle started to move. I didn't think, I just reacted. I ran to the closet, climbed inside, and pulled the door shut as quietly as I could. A few seconds later, the bedroom door opened. Whoever it was didn't rush. Their footsteps were slow, controlled, like they already knew exactly where I was. They walked across the room and stopped right in front of the closet. I held my breath, but I could still hear theirs, just on the other side of the door. Then they whispered, "I know you're in there." And in that moment, I genuinely thought that was it. Then suddenly, there was a loud crash from downstairs, something heavy hitting the floor, and the person outside the closet froze. A second later, they moved quickly, leaving the room and running down the stairs. I stayed in that closet for what felt like forever, too scared to move, too scared to even breathe properly, until eventually everything went quiet again. When I finally opened the closet door, the room was empty. I didn't wait to figure anything else out. I ran out of the room, down the hallway, down the stairs, and straight out the front door. I didn't stop running until I was halfway down the street. I never went back. The next day, I tried calling Daniel, but the number was disconnected, and when I checked the listing again, it was gone like it had never been there in the first place. A few days later, I drove past the house, and there was a sign out front that said, "For sale." Out of curiosity, I looked it up. According to the listing, no one had lived there for months. And the part that still doesn't sit right with me is what I noticed when I got home that night. I checked the money again. $300 bills, exactly like he gave me. But one of them was dated 1987. So, yeah, I still don't know who paid me to stay in that house, and I definitely don't know who told me to stay upstairs. If you've ever experienced anything like this, let me know. I read all the comments, and if you want more stories like this, you already know what to do. Just don't ever take a job where someone tells you they just need you to be there.